Hey, everybody. Michelle is back again. This is going to be part 3 of my series of, sharing and talking and contemplating. And today is March 27th, 2026 on a what? Friday. I remember looking back, I can remember, as a younger woman, looking forward to Fridays. And you know what? It usually ended up where I only just, because look, I used to hang out just like everybody else, go to these parties, go here and there and everywhere. But at the same time, that wasn't a focus per se. Because what used to happen for me and for people in my category as we were growing up, there were special events that used to take place, but they weren't taking place every weekend to my memory. So there were special events that used to happen. I remember used to have First Fridays, those kind of boring events. You know what I mean? Whereas people would meet up on blah 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 blah. My point is, I usually end up ordering a pizza and go sit my ass down somewhere, and that was my weekend. And then of course I took care of other things, but it wasn't anything too special where I needed to dress up, because I don't like to dress up. I'm not a dress up type of person, where I had to go somewhere and rub elbows with people. That wasn't my style anyway. So my Fridays was just a little different. In most cases I was outdoors, because I was, when I was still living with my parents, I would be outdoors maybe, or just stuck in my room. I'm gonna be honest. When I lived with my parents, I was stuck in my room. But then once I moved out on my own, I used to love, and I still do, just traveling around the city of where I was and just getting to know the city, getting to know the city, find good restaurants that I may want to go to or may want to visit, and that's what I would do. And I enjoyed that. Just getting to know the city, testing out good different restaurants and la da 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 da. So my point is, now with what's happening in the world, what's happening in the world has always been happening. These type of criminal negative energy forces working behind the scenes. It's just everybody was being lied to about what it actually was happening. The news media played a major role in that, distracting us, having us, giggle and cuckoo and caca about non-important things, while our country was going and bombing other countries and interfering with other countries and doing this and that and the other. So many things were going on behind the scenes that a lot of us had no idea, because like I said, we were indoctrinated to believe otherwise. We would believe, that we were living safely. Nobody was being hurt by our actions and behaviors. We were peaceful people in this country. We were not bothering other countries. We were not stealing from other countries. And it was all a lie. It was all a lie. We were interfering with other countries. We were bombing other places that did nothing to us. We need to admit it. Bombing other countries that did nothing to us. Lying about these so-called diplomatic, working in a diplomatic form. When someone says they're working in a diplomatic form, they're just using manipulation, deception, and changing of hands, and they're doing magic tricks. They're not doing anything where they're attempting to solve something, resolve something, solutions, clearing things up, making things right, making things peaceful. That was anything but what was happening. And so now here we are facing the consequences. And I know a lot of people mean well, in the news media. I support a lot of news media, especially the young ones, because if you're under 40, you're considered young in the news media. Because when you were a young child, you had no idea what your country was doing to other people. You were indoctrinated too, smiling and giggling and believing this country, was as peaceful as it claimed, not connecting the dots and realizing if we were peaceful, we would not be in war. We have been in war since I have been alive. Okay, that's over 50 years. And as well with my parents, who, lived to their almost 80s. So, and then when you think about, World War I, II, III, those numbers are irrelevant. It should have stopped at World War I, okay, back in the 1700s. But no, it's still continuing today. And we have the regime now who believe that they're experts, believe that they're so great at, figuring things out. They use strategic bullshit. They use scaling bullshit. They're playing checkers with our lives. And again, there's nothing wrong with checkers per se, but when you are claiming you want something done, resolved, and you want peace, that's anything but what we're doing. Peace does not pay the bills, okay, for our regime. They have to keep us in war in order to pay the bills. Otherwise, the collapse is going to happen regardless of how they sugarcoat it and how they manipulate it using artificial intelligence, believing artificial intelligence know the hell what they're talking about when it relates to war. Okay, yes, we're going to have androids that are going to fight wars for us, because we're not going to end war anytime soon because of the consequences. But they're going to artificial intelligence. Come on. Remember, artificial intelligence, you're teaching artificial intelligence. It's not the other way around. And yes, everything looks fantastic right now for some criminal negative energy forces. They believe that they're winning. They believe they're on top. They believe they're trillionaires. They believe they're billionaires. They believe they got the finer things in life. They got the so-called, trophy wives or trophy husbands. They got boats and planes and automobiles. It's just if anything, it's a strategic nightmare, and that's how it's been. There's no cohesiveness about it. There's no resolution coming forth at all, as long as we have those type of elements in place, and they'll be there for a while, unfortunately. So just individually decide how you're going to navigate yourself through all of this, because you have to. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. How are you going to take care of yourself if something happens to your partner? How are you going to take care of yourself if something happens to your kids? How are you going to take care of yourself if this or that or the other happens, where your livelihood is at stake? Just breathe, ground yourself, be gentle and kind, despite what you've done. Just be gentle and kind with yourself and ask yourself, okay, how am I going to resolve this? How am I going to resolve this? And how am I going to make things right? How am I going to stop the bleeding? Metaphor. And apologize to yourself for needing to apologize because you knew better. I'm not going to accept any other excuse, whereas you believe your pleading ignorance is going to save you. No, it's not. As the videos I've shared with you, You knew what you were into. You were benefiting. You were privileged. You were pedigreed. You were in the know. Your families had connections. You knew your family was involved in criminal negative energy, but you didn't say anything because you were benefiting. You were getting the next popular material, whether it's shoes, clothing. You were benefiting, and now it's time to pay up, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. And a lot of you are not going to make it, okay? But you still have that opportunity, though, to develop some peacefulness inside of you. Accept your accountabilities and responsibilities for all of this. Be kind and gentle with yourself, and realize, your energy moves on. Your physicalness, your body, you may die. Well, you will die. There's no may die, but there may be circumstances that's weather related where, as they say, you're staring death in the face. Just, it's easier said than done. You don't have to wait until that point. Pretend you're at that point. How about that? And how would you behave and act and make things right accordingly? That's something to contemplate, think about. It involves thinking, not building up any more anxiety than you have. I told you about anxiety and all these other factors that that we all are dealing with at these times. So I think this is it for today. Because I got a lot to do today. But I just want to go ahead and share my energy, the flow of my energy with those that resonate. And I know there's a lot that are resonating with me. You don't have to be concerned about my likes, my followers, blah, blah, blah. That's all an algorithm checkers game. Algorithms are checkers. Algorithms are playing checkers. But you can outmaneuver them. That algorithm bullshit. You can outmaneuver it if you like. You don't really have to. Just let people believe that they're doing something that they're not. Let people believe that they are let people believe that they are outmaneuvering you, but you are outmaneuvering them. That's the game of checkers, honey. Be creative, be aware, and you might as well enjoy the moments. Talk to you soon.